What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Beginner Bike Giveaway series. I'm trying this a little bit differently this time. I've got a new camera. I'm very excited about it, so I'm trying to use it as much as possible. Today we'll be taking the R3 out for a spin. We're going to be kind of discussing if it's a good all-around bike, if it makes sense for certain kinds of people, just discussing a little bit more about the R3. But before we begin, you will notice that our KTM is still here. There's a good reason for that. There's a good reason why the KTM is still here. We will be discussing that momentarily, so stay tuned. So you might be asking yourself, what in the sweet hell is this KTM still doing here? But there's a really good reason for that. So July 11th came around, that was about 10 days ago, if my calendar is correct, and the filming of this video. July 11th rolled around, we did our stream for our big giveaway for the KTM, like I've always done for all of our bikes. I'll actually include a little bit of footage here for that for you. So the winner is, we'll zoom in here, 13,900. It's gonna be Brooks Dixon, which I hope that's a girl. Alrighty, boys, that is it. That is the winner of the RC390s. We did the big stream, the big announcement. We had a winner, and then we put it up on Discord. I put it up on Patreon. I put it up on Instagram. I emailed him about 3 or 4 times. Days went by, didn't hear from him. I'm like, okay, it's a little weird. What's going on? I wait a couple more days, nothing. I put up another post on Instagram. I'm making all attempts. I'm emailing this guy. I'm doing everything, and I'm just not hearing back from him, right? So I unfortunately had to email him and let everyone else on the Patreon know. I'm like, hey, this person has until 11:59 p.m. on this day. If I don't hear from them at that point, we're gonna have to redraw for another winner. And that's what happened. We never heard from the winner, the first winner for the KTM RC390, and so here it sits. We never gave it away for that first one. It's sad, but at the same time, I feel like I gave this person up to a week to reply via email, via Patreon message, via public Instagram post. I feel like I made a lot of reasonable efforts to get in touch with this person. It's a shame they didn't get back to me in time, but that's the way it goes, man. I can't sit there forever and wait for a winner. So we had to redraw. So we redrew for another winner, and luckily this person did get back to us. I'll include some stream footage for our second one. Note, I was feeling pretty under the weather, so wasn't sounding very good on that stream, but check it out. It's the same thing as last time. Literally the same thing. Nothing has changed. We have our folks here. We have our free entries. Got all of our boys here, all signed up. Got our tail end for our last boy here. We took out Brooks just in case he won it again. But hopefully, God, if he got that lucky to win twice, that'd be so crazy. But anyways, let's do this. This person right here, because we had 19,593, is this person right here, Duncan McFarland. Duncan McFarland, baby. I don't know if you're in the stream or on our Discord server, but I'm about to shout you out, buddy. So Duncan McFarland was our winner on the second drawing, and he did reply, and we're in touch right now. He is actually a, active duty military Marine. So he is stationed, and he's not stationed, he's doing like a training camp for Marines. He's there for like 2 weeks, that's what he told me. So it's gonna be a little bit until we actually ship off the KTM, but it is going to Duncan, which is super cool. I'm very happy for Duncan, very excited that we got in touch and we got a guy, and we can now ship off the bike to its proper winner. So a bit of drama going on with the KTM, but luckily we sorted it out and it's gonna be great. But without further ado, let's get out on the road. Let's take this wonderful little Yamaha R3 out on the road and have some fun. So let's do it. And just like that, we are in a wonderful, idyllic hillside location here in Austin, Texas. And we're gonna ride the R3 a little bit.
have some fun. As you can tell, I've got a new front camera setup going on here, using the GoPro Hero 4 as my backup, since I now have a new Hero 7 Black with stabilization and 4K, which is pretty sweet. I'll probably keep downsampling to 1080 though, because I prefer it for stream quality, and because not everyone can stream 4K anyways nowadays, and it's like, 1080p with the 4K downsampled looks perfectly good enough to me. Speaking of looking good enough, man, I gotta tell you, dude, every time I take this bike out, it is turning heads. People are asking about it. People are looking at it, asking what it is. What's funny is I showed my buddy this bike, who he doesn't ride. He's weirdly enough, I have friends who don't ride. Can you imagine? And he saw this bike in a lineup of the SV650, the Desert Sled, and the KTM. And he pointed to the picture. He's like, "What's that one?" And I think that's the story with this bike, man. It's just, it's so good looking. It's just so handsome. You really can't get behind you can't look over the fact of how pretty this motorcycle is. So the topic for today's video, though, what I want to talk about is, how does the R3 do for the daily stuff, right? And I might not be the best person to ask this, because I'm very fortunate that I don't have like a daily setup, if that makes sense. But before we get started, though, let's get a cheeky little sound check. Let's put it in neutral. I'm on this hill, so I'm gonna put the rear brake on. You probably can't hear much of it because, we're going down here. I think it sounds cool, man. Parallel twins, these little ones, usually sound pretty cool. Let's rip a little U-turn here, and then let's discuss. So, the R3 and its daily riding potential. I think that a lot of people get stuck in their own heads about this stuff. They think about what is good for daily riding, what's good for commuting versus highway versus canyon carving. And I gotta be honest, guys, like most bikes you're gonna encounter, they're, it's gonna probably be your first bike, and so you're only gonna have one of them. You're not gonna be in a situation where, you're trying to use a bunch of different motorcycles when you first start out, so you're gonna have to make some compromises. I think the main compromise the R3 makes is its highway passing power, because otherwise it's just, it's a motorcycle like any other one. Two-up riding is probably going to be a little compromised in the Yamaha R3, mostly because you just don't have that much torque. I just took out my Desert Sled with my girlfriend the other week, and we did a big two-up ride, and even that bike with 803 cc's, I was kind of hoping for a little more torque when it came to the two-up riding. I kind of saw it and I was like, man, I really wish that I had a little bit more poke down low to get me out of the hole when I'm two-up. When I'm by myself, it's perfectly fine and I love the bike, but for two-up riding, I think you're going to want to look to that like 50 to 60 foot-pounds of range of torque to have some fun with. Otherwise, it's going to feel kind of slow and sluggish. But, the other things that people think about a lot when it comes to sort of daily potential is fuel economy, and that's where I think the R3 really shines. These little bikes, man, you can see 60, 70, sometimes even 80 miles per gallon depending on how you ride. So that's really quite amazing when you think about it. So given that this thing is sipping fuel, even if you have to make two trips, like, you're not going to be wasting much money at all. This is absolutely ridiculous how much this thing is shaking, so I probably won't use this front camera very much because it's probably going to look like garbage. What else is there to think about when it comes to daily riding the R3? One thing that a lot of guys don't think about is when they start looking at bikes, it's, sport bikes are nothing. So many guys, for some reason, want the sort of R6s and GSX-R 600s. I don't know why they get it in their head that that's going to be like the bike that they want, but those bikes are terrible for street duty, man. Those bikes are terrible for any kind of meaningful street duty. I would know because I used to have a Daytona 675R that I used pretty extensively on the street. I put like 20,000 miles on that bike, and nowadays you really couldn't pay me enough money to ride one of those bikes on the street. It just kind of sucks. Like, it's not fun, because the bike just wants to go fast all the time. It doesn't really, beg to kind of crack down miles in the saddle or anything like that. So it's pretty difficult to justify those kinds of motorcycles for, you know, daily riding. But the R3, I think it's something that has a lot of the looks of something like that, but without basically any of the compromises. You know, the entry price is pretty low. What else? The ergonomics are actually a lot more soft than something like a super committed super sport. And then, you know, the power is not going to scare you. So for beginners, it's absolutely perfect. So I would really say for daily riding in terms of that, the R3 makes a much better case for it. I would say one of the challenges you might face with this bike is if you are trying to daily ride it, there's really not a whole lot of space for something like an X mount or, you know, other accessories or that kind of stuff. Like, I'm not really seeing anywhere you could clamp on. That's why I had to clamp that thing on over there. I know that they make different kind of setups for bikes with clip-ons, but as far as I'm aware, they would make it a little bit more difficult since this bike doesn't have like big bars or anything like that. But yeah, going back to what I was saying, I am extremely privileged in that I don't have like a 9-to-5 schedule and, you know, like a commute that I have to do every day and that kind of stuff. But I imagine that if I did, I'm not sure if I would choose the R3, mostly because Texas commutes tend to be kind of highway focused. And if I had to jump on the highway every single day with this bike, yes, it's totally doable. There's really no issue in taking this bike on the highway, but you know, it's one of those things where I thought the stop sign was for me. It's one of those things where if I had the choice, I probably would pick a 650 for that kind of purpose, mostly because it's more upright and it has more torque and it's going to be more nice to take on a daily ride, right? Whereas the R3 is something I would consider if I was maybe like a student and I had a shorter commute, or maybe my commute only consisted of back roads or something like that. That would make it a lot more fun to have something like the R3. But, you know, for other purposes, I would probably pick something in the 650 class. That's just my personal opinion. But that's the kind of stuff you have to ask yourself. How do you really intend on using this motorcycle? And that's something I think not a lot of people ask themselves very often when it comes to, you know, buying a bike. They don't think about it like, oh, how am I really going to use this machine day in and day out? Am I going to use it day in, day out? Is it more of a weekend toy for me? Which is totally cool. I think a lot of us get in the mindset of like, if you buy a bike, you got to use it every day and it's got to be your primary vehicle. That's not true at all, man. Like, I always tell people that I much prefer having like a actual car and then having my bikes, mostly because, you know, at the end of the day, cars are always going to be more practical and more kind of usable than a motorcycle. If you're going to go grocery shopping, I'd rather take the car, man. I'm not going to take the bike to go grocery shopping. That's really not my MO, you know. You can go ride the bike for fun, but that's just me. I primarily use motorcycles as pleasure vehicles. I don't really use them for proper transportation. I only very shortly did I use my bikes to actually commute with, and I think that's something that happens pretty naturally when you start riding bikes. You're like super jazzed up and you want to ride and you want to go have fun, and so you commute with the bike. You take the bike everywhere you go. You're riding on the bike no matter what. Someone's like, hey, let's go meet up for drinks. You're going out with the bike. Some girl's like, let's go hang out. You're gonna go meet her up on the bike. If you're gonna go to work, you're gonna go on the bike. You don't care. But as time goes on, the kind of novelty of it will wane, and you'll want to just take something, like, you don't want to get suited up like 3 or 4 times a day. Sometimes you just want to, you know, take it easy and just wear clothes and go out, you know? There's nothing wrong with that. Let's rip a little U-turn here. Anyone coming? No? Okay, we're good. The almighty power! I love 300s. So yeah, I think, you know, if you're going out every single day and this and that, what I'm saying is eventually you'll get bored of that, I think. And so I would hesitate to buy a bike strictly for its kind of daily potential, mostly because that'll probably change over time. And maybe you'll find, and this happens to a lot of guys, that you buy a sport bike and then it's really not for you. You don't like that. You might find that you like something else, you know? Like there's a guy on a Discord server, his name is Trevor St. McGoodbody. He bought a CBR 1000R, you know, proper leader bike, super sport, super bike type of thing, and then, you know, realized that it wasn't for him. He really hated the fact that it was so committed, ergonomically speaking, and it was just like this crazy, you know, motorcycle that just wanted to go fast all the time. And so he swapped it for a VFR 800, a much more upright motorcycle, good torque still, but not something that's going to beat up your back every time you get on it and go have some fun. So, I mean, for a lot of folks, that's the difference. That's the compromise that they make, and it's not a one-size-fits-all type of thing. You know, I think that's we got as beginners. You get stuck in your mind that there's like an optimal or best choice to make when it comes to your bike, but there's really not, man. There's just the bike that you want, and there's the bikes that make sense for you. Like for me, for example, I'm probably never gonna buy an R6 to ride around on the street. It just doesn't make sense. That's not really what I'm about. That's not really what I'm into. It's not a good option for me, you know? But for a lot of guys, they love it. They love riding their R6s on the street, and they love revving them out and having a good time with it, and that's cool, man. You can totally do that. I just think that for me, it doesn't make sense. Much like, you know, some folks love a huge ADV motorcycle. Some guys are out there and they want to get the big bad Africa Twin or a BMW GS or something, and they want to, you know, commute every day with it and have it and love it and cherish and hold it and tell it sweet things at night. And that's cool, dude. For me right now in the stage of my life, that just doesn't make sense, and I don't want that, you know? So motorcycling is a very personal thing. Yeah, this camera angle is completely bust. That's okay. Motorcycles are a very personal thing, so when it comes to can the R3 do the whole daily thing, I think it absolutely can. Is it as well suited as other bikes? That depends on what you're looking for, you know? It really, really depends on what you're looking for when it comes to riding your bike every single day, if that's something you want to do. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the R3 as a daily motorcycle. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. I always love hearing from you. As always, I will catch you next time. I'm gonna go up here a little bit and have some fun on these little twisty roads with the R3. Probably include that footage. And I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Remember, I'm giving away this motorcycle. If you want to learn how you can win this Yamaha R3, it's going to go to somebody. Might as well be you. Click the links below. $1 equals 1 entry on our merch page, and then you know, automatic entry on our Patreon. So sign up, let me know, and I'll catch you next time. See you later.